Well, I'm delighted because in our polls have been going up quite strongly, of course. So the last three polls we were on 15, 15 and 13 points, and so that's quite a big bump for us. And I think that that's in recognition of the work particularly that Materia Ture has been doing in the last few weeks, highlighting how we trap people in poverty in this country and saying actually the Green Party is the party that is bold enough to say we can actually end poverty in New Zealand, and people are responding to that. Well, we certainly consider it. So when Andrew and we signed the Memorandum of Understanding between the Labour Party and the Green Party about a year and a half ago, one of the things that we said was the Labour and Green parties are committed to changing the government and to forming a new government afterwards. And we're open to working with any other party, including New Zealand First, that wants to do that wants to change the government. No, I haven't. But I don't take it personally because Winston doesn't talk to anybody. I mean, he literally won't talk to the leaders of other political parties. He tries to keep himself removed from all of that. And that's just kind of part of his unusual way of doing things. Well, to tell you the truth, I think they've made a botch of it. So, what they said is they kind of had a bit of a panicked response to public concern. They changed some of the criteria and then they found out that they'd gotten those wrong. Now they're having to reverse themselves out of it again. So I think that the way that they're handling it isn't terribly sophisticated. I also think that the way that the National Party treats immigration it's like an extension of their economic policy. When we talk about the numbers, because the whole conversation and the debate around immigration policy for the last 20 years has tended to be dominated by very xenophobic and even racist elements. When you start having conversations about the numbers, you immediately start reinforcing all of that conversation around xenophobia and racism, right? Because it's been dominated by people who have wanted to exploit people's fear. And so I have been trying to avoid talking about numbers recently because I want us to talk about values and principles. That's right. And those are. I don't think that we can have a sophisticated conversation around the numbers until we've had the conversation around values and principles. Well, I can tell you what it's supposed to be versus what it is. So when Michael Joseph Savage, first Labour Prime Minister, set up the social welfare system in New Zealand, the idea was to provide a safety net so that no one would fall below a certain level. Right? That was the whole idea. Recognising that people have different life circumstances and their circumstances change and every now and then you run into trouble, that basically the state would provide a safety net. That was the basic idea. And what's happened is that over the course of the last 30 years, that safety net has been lowered and lowered and lowered, and a number of holes have been poked into it, and so people are falling through it, and then they can't get back up. And that's what I mean by what this social welfare is at the moment, is we have a really punitive system that doesn't provide enough for people's basic needs. And you've got this huge bureaucracy called WINS, the job of which is to stop people from accessing the kind of money that they need to be able to make ends meet, rather than to be able to provide it. And so actually the way that it's designed at the moment, it actually traps people in poverty. And we've got loads of stories, thousands of stories all over the country of people who are actually trapped in poverty because the social welfare system keeps them there. I would say in this situation that the law is poorly designed, right? And one of the reasons why we talked about the refugee quota is because actually New Zealand is well behind most other countries. Australia, who frankly don't have the best reputation when it comes to their treatment of refugees, they still take on 4 times as many refugees as New Zealand does per head of population. No, I've heard that before, but I disagree with them. And the thing is, if we took on 5,000 refugees a year, if you compare that at the moment, migration's running at about 75,000 a year, so it's a tiny portion of our overall net migration. Thank you very much for having me on the show. I do hope to be back, and I'm really keen to hear what you've got to say about today's interview and some of the issues that we've been talking about, and I do hope to have the opportunity to meet some of you soon in person.